Hello, people. What is going on? Welcome back to E20 Zone TV. To my right is Jay, and down the bottom there is We Are West Ham Podcast, Will. And we're here to talk about West Ham United, the all deal at the minute, and Saturday's, game. Will, how are you? I know, mate. I know. Will, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. I was sort of saying to anyone who listen, it feels a bit like sort of West Ham of the old days. And by the old days, I mean pre-David Moyes' second spell, where, I don't know, just sort of like, I don't know, we've had a whole lifetime, I'm sure you two have as well, of West Ham being sort of average at best, pretty pants on the whole. And not that I particularly wanted that to happen, but there is a certain amount of freedom that comes with sort of going to games thinking, well, at best we're going to come 12th this year, and not like being absolutely desperate with every fibre of your being for us to qualify for Europe so we can have a few more glamorous away games. Like, you know, they're so out of the question this season, aren't they? It sort of went to Ipswich and I was just like looking forward to the game. It didn't really matter either way. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. Jay, how are you doing, mate? And how are you today?
Yeah, all right, mate. All right. It was a bit of a shock to the system to come onto the famous E20 stream and not have a stream of expletives expelled from yourself, James. Unlike on the weekend, which was again totally justified, I think. But yeah, all good, mate. I'm sure we've all had a difficult Monday. I'm sure it's not been fun, those who've been in an office and who have the misery of sharing office with Spurs fans. Luckily, I work remotely, so I'm all right on that front. But surviving, mate. How are you?
All good, mate. All good. What I need to get to is why is it going so wrong so quick, Will? That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, I always sort of preface this with I'm not always necessarily the right man to talk to about this, because if it was solely down to me and I was watching West Ham in the London Stadium on my own, I would have kept David Moyes. And I know people think I'm being facetious when I say that, but I genuinely, and I think it was unsustainable, right? Because of the fan feeling. I get that. I'm not saying that it wasn't time for it. Like, I think a change was in order, but that in itself frustrated me because I was like, I know it's not always pretty and I know it's not always great, but I just think on the whole, he bounced back before, I think with a similar level of back-in. Who knows what he could have done again. I get that people were bored of it and it's not just about what I think, but I just think all that's happening now isn't at all like that much of a surprise to me. When it was all get him out, I was like, okay, it could get better, but like everyone seemed to be ignoring the fact that it could also get worse. And that was kind of what I expected to happen. I thought that was more likely. So seeing it now, it's one of those things where you sort of, don't know, I'm not like I really wanted to be proved wrong and have people laugh at me going, remember last year, you idiot, when you were like, recommending caution. Look at us now, you idiot. I was hoping for that. And it's sort of the other way where I'm like, oh, well, see, like, I'm annoyed that I'm sort of, I appear to be proven right, but I appreciate it's early. So
yeah, don't get me wrong. I completely agree with you 1000%, because when you've been to the glory land, which we have over the last 4 years, we need to sustain that level of like structure at West Ham and doing well and maintaining a standard. I think what it is, Will, and I don't know about you, Jay, but I feel like the standard's dropping now, back down to the old standard of years ago. And what you said at the start of this stream, I can relate to, because I remember them old days when we was not all that, nowhere near being all that, and all of a sudden now we've become something, and now we're going back to being something. I agree with you with regards to Moyes that I think it was time for him to go to a point, because I think the fan base had just been so split and divided, and I think if he would have stayed another year, there wouldn't have been a fan base. Straight.
It wasn't sustainable, was it? I get that.
Yeah. So I completely understand that. Jay, what do you make of what Will has just said?
Mate, well, I think you're absolutely bang on, mate. Absolutely bang on. And I feel exactly the same. Like, going to games week in, week out, and the second half of that season, again, we didn't really have much to play for, did we? And you would turn up, it was a bit miserable. But I look back 6 months ago now when we were like, God, this is rubbish, isn't it? We should be finishing 7th and we're now going to finish 9th. And you look at what we're dealing with now, and it's like, and again, I completely subscribe to the fact that it was time for a change. The David Moyes is so polarizing. Like we'll look back on this in 10 years' time and go, Christ, like I wonder whether like you'll still get like shouted down for even mentioning his name. Like whatever way you believe, it just causes an argument if you mention David Moyes on social media, which is a point in itself, right? Like it's a complete point in itself.
No, sorry to interrupt, just quickly.
No.
Even as I was about to say it just then, right, I get that little feeling of like, oh, am I just going to get, are these two going to hammer me here? These two, and just by going, I wanted David Moyes to stay. I'm like, oh, one of these two is probably going to have a proper crack at me here because so many people just saying that, they're like, ah, it's just, I don't know, it's this weird like parallel universe for me where I'm like, why am I getting grief for like being supportive of our greatest manager of the modern era? What is going on here?
I do get what you're saying, right? Because that's exactly what it was last year. There was two sides of the fence, and there was no middle. Basically, there was no sort of coming together and going. And what done it last year for me, the main thing was no one could accept what he had done, as in being an achievement. Do you know what I mean? And I think people were bypassing all that because they literally hated the man with a passion. Now,
which is mental to me.
I agree with that totally. Considering what we've seen over the years. Now I'm a 37-year-old man, and I've seen some shit. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
mate.
We all have. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for me, I look at now with Lopetegui, and I feel like it's just a short-term fix for a problem that was made really by the fans to a point, to get the manager out, bring him in, and go from there. Do you know what I'm saying? I
couldn't agree more. I honestly couldn't. I don't even think, you know what? I think he's a short-term fix to a problem that perhaps wasn't even there. Like, he's not fixing anything. Everything is more broke than it was.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, the thing that I think irritates me the most, right? You've mentioned Jonesy, my co-host on the podcast, very great friend of mine. We've been doing this sort of stuff for 5 or 6 years now, right? And often we agree on stuff, often we don't. And he's kind of been opposite side of the coin to me on all of this. And he's sort of talking about Lopetegui now, right? And he's one of them where it's like, he's obviously watching different games to me. He's like, I see positive signs. Like, I see where he's trying to do. And I'm like, honestly, please describe it to me. And then he gets a bit, he's like, well, and I'm like, well, no, you said you can see signs. Explain them to me in English, and I'll go, oh yeah, makes sense, right? So there's none of that coming through. And the thing that sort of irritates me is like, it's like, well, look, this season's transition season. It's like all of a sudden these fans were so angry last season are now happy if we finish 12th because, and it's sort of the idea being that I'm happy if we finish 12th. Not me, by the way. So this is, I finished 12th this year because it's transition season. And it's like, because we're working towards this like moment in the future where things are all glorious, right? Honestly, how much better is it going to be? It must be based on the belief that in a couple of seasons' time, that we're going to be where we were in the table before, in and around and in Europe and going deep in European competitions.
Yeah.
But playing a slightly more expensive brand of football. And I'm just like, to base lots of upheaval and lots of like years, I feel it's going to be of like mediocrity in this, like all in this quest for this like mystical utopic thing in the future where we're not going to get much higher or much better, that we're not going to be in the Champions League. I know people go, Aston Villa are doing it. They're spending loads of money. Their club is really well set up. That's another thing people ignore. The quality of the club setup only is going to help or hinder you to a certain degree. It's just, I don't know, there's just so many factors that just get completely lost that I think the more time goes on, the more people will look back at the David Moyes second spell and go, Jesus, do you remember that we were desperate for that to end? And I don't know. It's never happened for some people. It does my head.
Do you feel though, Will, yeah, that where I ain't gonna say, oh, I've got to really say it, but did we overachieve to a point with Moyes and
Yeah.
people? The standard was set by Moyes
Yeah.
to say, right, they're a top 10 side. Yeah, we're signing Lucas Paqueta, who I'll get onto later on, and we're signing these players, and we're aiming for a standard now. I do feel with the Lopetegui thing, this is a Pellegrini 2.0 all over again.
Oh,
Like,
couldn't agree more.
yeah, like we're seeing the same things over and over again. We're looking at and listen, Sullivan. Whether your thoughts are on Sullivan, mine are very strong. I'm not a big fan of the geezer, yeah, but on this one, I think he's got this one majorly wrong in regards of if you're going to go out and you're going to appease the fans, you go out and get a young manager, 5-year deal, give a project and say, right, and we could accept that. I could accept that. I could hold my hands up and say, right, I could accept a 5-year and a man who's going to do a transition and really change West Ham and embrace it like a Brighton do with their current manager. At present, I'm seeing West Ham gambling to a point. West Ham have gambled on Lopetegui and to say, right, this is your man. You've got 2 years to get us into Europe. And I can see a situation where we're going to have a Lopetegui in, Lopetegui out situation next season. Or it might even be this season to a point. I think it's starting to begin right now. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening, isn't it? And so I understand people's pain and people's frustrations, right? Because we're pretty much a quarter of the way through the season now, and it ain't been good enough. Like we all know it hasn't been good enough. It's been miserable. I'm already fed up of this season. I can't wait.
It's over, isn't it? Season's over.
We were in the international break going, can't wait for Premier League football to come back. And now I'm like, oh, I can't wait for another international break. I really can't.
Yeah,
like,
I really
just,
love England.
Just 2 weeks of just not watching any football will just be brilliant. And like, that's not how it should be. And I thought about this the other day, and Will, you're probably the same. Like, I go every week, and even when it was tough under like David Moyes at the end of last season, still enjoyed going. Like the football wasn't great, but the ritual was still good. We had no worries in terms of how we were going to finish in the Premier League, and we were on the back end of the best period of West Ham in the Premier League era, like the most consistent period. And I look at it now, and I was saying to you offline the other day, James, I accidentally booked a golf trip this weekend. So I'm not going to the Manchester United game, and I'm not going to watch the Manchester United game. And I was gutted when I realised I'd messed my weekends up. I was gutted. That was probably about 6 weeks ago that I realised that. I'm buzzing now. I can't wait to walk around a golf course in the pouring rain and not look at West Ham. And when I play like an absolute bellend, at least it's my own problem. At least I'm creating my own downfall, and I can live with that. And I walk around this golf course about 20 over par on the 9th hole, pouring rain, and I'll have a smile on my face because it's my own problem. But like you look,
got any space?
I'm enjoying me. But I look at it now, and I look at the people who are saying Lopetegui out. I hear you. I hear your frustrations. The football's awful. The guy can barely speak English. He doesn't seem to have ever had the dressing room. He seems to have fallen out with a couple of players. He's a short-term appointment. I know. I completely agree with all the problems. But what does it solve if you get rid of him now? Let's say hypothetically he was to go tonight. Who are you getting in? Like you've got Graham Potter, we briefly spoke about. He's not coming to West Ham, and he can't come into a club that's so chaotic behind the scenes. Again, he went to a Brighton side that was so well run, and then went to a Chelsea side that was chaos, and he couldn't do it. So how do you think he's going to fare if he comes to West Ham? You look at Gareth Southgate. Let's not get started on this bloke. Like he's going to come.
I wouldn't hate that. Just saying.
I think he'd come in and cause all the same problems in terms of dividing the fan base, and it won't get better because he'll come into a toxic atmosphere and it won't be good. And so what do you actually get? like there's no point in changing him. I hear your frustrations. We just got to dig in, lads, and just get used to it for the rest of the season. And then
the problem
deal with it
is,
at the end of the year.
the problem is that some people are saying, "Well, we never asked for this."
Mate, I hate that. Don't get me started on that. But you did. Yeah.
And like the thing is, when you want the manager out, right, you could have 10,000 West Ham fans. There's only one man who picks the manager, and that is David Sullivan.
No, I'm not having that, mate. I must admit, I think Steidten's getting away with so much here.
I agree with you on
that, you know, like in my line of work anyway, like I know enough people like well in at West Ham, like, you know, sort of high level sources, and various as well, who like, believe it or not, and lots of fans won't want to hear it, David Sullivan he still has the final say, because ultimately, whether you agree with it or not,
He's the
if
owner.
you've got £1 billion investment or an asset you value at £1 billion, I'd want the final say too, right? Whether people agree with him or not. So he does, but he's taken a considerable step back in his, like, because he wanted it. He wanted to hire Steidten or someone like that, and he has got, he's got a big old chunky say. This is Steidten at the club, and again, like I say, Sullivan signing the check, so ultimately he can kibosh anything he wants. But all of this all the briefing that was going on around, Lopetegui didn't actually want, Steidten didn't actually want Lopetegui, and it was just, he really wanted Amorim, but the club wouldn't pay the money. Like, that's obviously it's blatantly obvious. Anyone with a sort of brain in their head can work out what side of the camp that briefing come from. And I think he's getting away with a lot. And I said that when Moyes left, I was like, it's put up or shut up time for Steidten now, because all of that, all the beef that he had with Moyes at the end of last season, a lot of the stuff, I think if anyone was in Moyes' position in their normal job, you'd have had a problem with some of the things that were going on as well. And I just think, spotlight's on him now. He sort of wants to be, he wanted that. Then he's always on the pitch and he's started giving interviews.
Don't get me wrong, Will. I am not disagreeing with everything you said, but Sullivan is the man who has the final say. I knew about Lopetegui back in December last year. I knew Lopetegui was on his way. Yeah, I'm involved in a lot of betting. I've said it on this channel quite a lot, and I speak to a lot of traders. And the word was going around that Sullivan was looking, because obviously the contract wasn't sort of there. They was mucking about the contract with Moyes. But long story short, I knew he was looking at Lopetegui. Lopetegui was there at Arsenal in the League Cup game, and the rest is history. I get what you're saying about Steidten. I do think Steiden's getting a pass. The only thing I've got a problem with Steidten is, how can you get a midfield so wrong? That just makes no sense to me. We've got no midfield. You was there on Saturday. I see your video, you walking away, and I look at us as a team now, and a couple of the boys who have come on this channel, I love them to bits, but they are bang on in what they say. Yeah, we've got a lot of they look individually good players, but as a team and collective, they're like, what do they do? Do you know what I'm saying? So I do agree with you. But Sullivan always will have the final say at West Ham. Always.
Yeah, but listen, like, to be fair, that is, I'm not a cheerleader by any, but like I was saying before, if I had £1 billion of my money, or 800 mil or whatever it is, the assets valued at, I'd be having the final say as well. But I think more of it, I'm not saying it's all on Steidten, to be fair. Obviously Sullivan still has a say. I think it's more just the idea that it's solely him now. If anything, the Steidten move, and you could see it from a lot of the fanboying that lots of our supporters were doing online in the immediate aftermath. Like, lots of fans were like buzzing for that, weren't they? Because they were like, "Oh, it's going to mean less control for Sullivan." It doesn't mean less control, but it certainly it does equal less involvement, and he is involved far less in the scouting and deciding who we sign and all that. And I just think, what I would have liked, and I know this is because of my Moyes persuasion, I suppose, but I think something like you mentioned it there, right, about appeasing the fans, and that feels exactly sort of what he did. And I think weirdly, I would have sort of respected him. And I kind of would. I don't know if I would as much with Lopetegui at this stage, but if he'd have come out and been like, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not risking taking West Ham back to where we were. Like, David Moyes has done excellent things for us. We believe he can do it again. It's not great at the moment because it wasn't a great end to the season, but it was the best ever Premier League start to a season we'd had last year, points wise. And I think it's all of that. I don't know. I think it's just this belief that some West Ham fans have that we should be beating teams 3-0 every week, playing this expensive style of football. When ultimately teams of our level, financial and quality of setup, like Moyes kept us in games that most of my life we'd never been in. That's why it feels like back to what I call the dark ages of West Ham, right? Basically between 2007 and Slaven Bilic. Just like couldn't really tell you anything exciting or interesting that happened. Like just a load of time of wanting to beat Tottenham, almost a decade of that being the only exciting thing.
So true.
And that's what it feels like now. It's just like, I know I would have liked Sullivan to go, no, I'm sorry. Look at where the club was. David Moyes has changed that. And we're backing him again. If it gets terrible and we're flirting with relegation, fair enough. But like, and bang, this is who we are. This is West Ham. And I don't know. I think everyone sort of would have shrugged it off then. But like you say, it's just half-assed a bit, really. It's like, oh, well, we'll get rid of him then. But it's like, well, all right, if you're going to do that, like, flipping have someone decent ready, not just someone who's available. Go and spend the money on Amorim. How exciting would that have been? Like, it's like, oh, we'll get the bloke who's got a good TV, but never really did anything at, certainly in English football. Just not having it.
Listen, I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree, especially on the Lopetegui thing, because I feel like it's just he's there, he's available, he's free, he's cheap. Yeah, so I completely agree with you on that. I'm going to move away from that. Let's go to some players. Yeah. Talk to me about Lucas Paqueta, Will.
Yeah, I just think the situation going on at the moment is hanging over him. It feels like an easy thing to say, and to be honest with that, I haven't got too much sort of like insight one way or the other. But it's sort of fairly easy maths to do, isn't it? Really, do you know what I mean? It's like this thing's rumbling on and on. It's got the ability, you know. I know that I'm aware of the serious nature of some of the charges being levelled at him, and I think his sort of sticky patch is the fact that the burden of proof for FA charges is different to what it is in a criminal court. You know, it's on balance of probabilities, I think it is, for the FA, where it's obviously proved beyond reasonable doubt in the criminal court. If you got it hanging at like a big old guillotine hanging over your head that might spell the end of your football career or your normal career, I think it would affect me, and I'm sure it's affecting him as well. And I just think I don't think his head's in it. I don't think his head's sort of in the game. And even at Tottenham Saturday, you know, and I love Paqueta, by the way. I think he's a Rolls Royce of a football player, like mustard. I think some of the things he does for us in third gear are better than most of the things I've seen most of our players do over the last however many years we've been watching West Ham. But yeah, that's sort of it, really. I just don't think his head's in it, and I kind of get it. Like, you know,
I think Will, like the question I want to ask then, because I completely agree. James and I have had these conversations. I did a video on Paqueta not long ago saying very similar to you. Given the fact that we've got no Mohamed Kudus for at least 3 games coming up,
and
given that Paqueta's not been at himself and he can't seem to get himself out of this funk, do you carry on playing him, or do you take him out the team for the game against Manchester United?
That's a good question. I mean, we'd do with dropping him. I think so, but then it's one of them. And it sounds weird saying this, but if I was Lopetegui, I'd almost do what he wants. I know that sounds ridiculous because he's
that free roll. That free roll.
Well, just no, but ask him and go, listen, he might be going, look, I need to play. It's distracting me. It's the only thing keeping me going. And if you drop me, Lopetegui might feel that, look, he's not great, but if I drop him, he'll fall to bits, then we won't have him at all. Yeah. I just see what he says. Like, are you up for this? Do you want a bit of time off? Whatever. Because I don't think, like I say, the way he's playing at the moment, we wouldn't lose loads without him. But I do think you got to be careful to not destroy him as well. If he's feeling a bit fragile and like concerned, I think you'd have to tread carefully if you sort of start playing the hard man. I think that can go. It's easy to say, just drop him, but that can go one or two ways. And with a player like that, as much as he's a bit of a liability at the moment, he's also got the ability when he's on the ball to, you know, get Lopetegui out of the mess he's finding himself in. So it's not quite straightforward, I think some people make out, but I wouldn't be at all bothered if he like sat on a bench for 2 or 3 games or whatever, if that was sort of what was best for the team and for him.
I think he needs a wake-up call to a point. I will say that. I think you've got a player there who's strolled into a point. He likes to go down quite a lot. and they fall over all the time. And the thing is with the West Ham fan base, Will, you know this, like being in the circle, we don't like people who just fall on the floor and just like falling over everywhere. Do you know what I mean? We like people who get stuck in, and when the going gets tough, we get going, sort of thing. I look at him as a problem at the minute for me. I look at him as a player that he's got a lot of weight of the world on his shoulders. I agree with you 100%. And I think sometimes you've got to be like cruel to be kind, sort of thing. Take him out to say, you know what, have a sit on the bench this one. Right, you can get 20 minutes, half hour if the game goes how we want it to go. Yeah. And I don't think that's any harm, right? I think obviously he's getting a lot of stick because I can't remember a game, Will, over the last year where he's been amazing. I really can't.
No. And you sort of think, hang on, when did he last score? Or, I mean, no one's playing well, are they? The system's a bit... I do think he may be a victim of the system, if I'm honest. I think Jared Bowen's been a victim of the system this year because he's got way less space because he's shoving Wan-Bissaka all up in his grill every game. Yeah. And I think Paqueta could be a victim of that as well. So, yeah, perhaps I sort of made out like it was just the sort of issues he's got going on with the case and stuff. But, yeah, it could be what he's being asked to do. I don't think Kudus is particularly happy, is he, at the moment? And I think Bowen is obviously his captain, but he's hardly fizzing, is he? Dropped from England. Like, I don't think he's loving the sort of tight space he's being forced to play in. But no, I don't know really. I mean, where are you going to put in Carlos Soler? Right.
Cardio King. I won't hear a bad word about Cardio King. Thank you very much.
I don't mind him, to be fair. He looks like there might be a player in there at some point, but I don't know.
His running stats will be immense, but I couldn't tell you how many times he's actually touched the ball in a West Ham shirt. It's
quality Barnet as well, isn't he? That's what.
He has got a great bite. He's a handsome boy.
Yeah.
He does get our average out of 10 in terms of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, easily the best looking one in the squad, isn't he? Yeah.
Everyone wants West Ham to look good on and off the pitch, so there you go. Will, before we round this up, how do West Ham improve with Lopetegui, mate? Or is it possible?
I know it sounds silly, but I just sort of think I just felt like he was so like, yeah, I know. I think he felt like he was really buying popularity to fans, right? By casting aside loads, like the Souček situation. I mean, nothing gives me more joy than the fact that he's tried to axe him. A man I've got so much respect for, by the way, and anyone who slags Souček off like that's not the sort of West Ham fans I've been used to growing up with. Because in days gone by, West Ham fans would have, for someone who gives as much as he does for the shirt, would have hero worshipped him at Upton Park. Seriously, they would have done. I mean, Carlton Cole is considered a legend of our club, and I love Carlton, but he wasn't blessed with the greatest of natural talent, was he? He was no Payet, but he tried his socks off for however many seasons, scored 3 goals in about 700 games, and we love him. And it's with Souček, I think the same thing. Lopetegui's coming, get rid of Soufal, get rid of Souček. Like, widely and publicly considered two of the hardest workers with the best attitudes that exemplified what West Ham have been under the last few years. Yeah, get rid of them. It's like, what are you doing? And then the Wan-Bissaka thing, I'm not buying that at all. And I think it's 50% player, 50% what Lopetegui's asking him to do. And no one can tell me that it's better for the team if Guido Rodriguez is in it instead of Thomas Souček. And I'm not saying that Souček's the future. I understand why Lopetegui would be feel that he's not the future. But it's like, all right, mate, fine. But don't cut your nose off to spite your face just to try and prove a point. Just play your best team now to get some points now and ingratiate what you're trying to do slowly. But in the meantime, leave Thomas Souček on, who runs more than anyone, most people in the league most weeks, puts his head in, and whether people like to admit it or not, and I think they're sort of fooled by the fact he's a bit ugly and a bit gangly, that he scores important goals as well. And that's what I think it is. Just rein back what you're trying to do a bit, not go completely back to last season, but just if Moyes is here and Lopetegui Utopia's here, just rein it back in a little bit and just what you're doing with Wan-Bissaka, stop making him stand 2/3 of the way up the pitch. So then when our terrible midfield inevitably loses the ball, we are majorly overexposed at left mid, right back, just do the basic things first that are clearly going wrong, and just try and get back to like, competing for battles and duels and like doing the basic stuff to give ourselves a chance in some football games, rather than just being absolutely like nowhere near it against like sort of bigger teams than us, and even against like Fulham and Brentford, who we should definitely be finishing above. We're like sort of just about holding on for points.
Do you think he lasts this season, Will? You?
I don't think, unless we go on like a catastrophically bad run, where I'm talking like relegation zone, I think he gets until at least Christmas, whatever happens. Because if you're at the board now, you're like this season's done, and it is, isn't it? The season's over already. And I think there's so many bad teams in the league. Like we will turn up and just like we did against Ipswich, put in 6 out of 10 performances and get enough points against Ipswich, Leicester, Southampton, Everton, and you will pick up an odd few scrappy, ugly ones against Forest, like we did at Palace as well. Might beat Brentford and come 12th. So I think for the club, it's like, why would they sack him? It's no, and that's what I hate about it the most. It's just going to be so mediocre, I think. I don't.
What happens though, Will? Just for argument's sake, to round this up, what happens if he stays the season? Then we've got a problem next season in regards of him, right? Because obviously he had 1 year left. Like, what do you do with him? Like, do you let him go, let the year go away, or do you try him again? Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
no, I do.
I can see a similar situation. I can see it coming where if he's not gone this year, next year we're going to have Lopetegui in, Lopetegui out 2.0, like it was with Moyes. And what it is, people will be saying about running his contract down, and seeing what happens, and then going for another sideways step there, because obviously the damage will be done this season.
Meanwhile, our top quality players are bleeding out, and Kudus and like Paqueta, if he finds his form again, and Todibo go, no, what's the project here? Like, I'm better than this. See you later. I think the one thing I will give Lopetegui credit for that I think he will do is, I disagree with you that I think he'll unify the fan base where everyone will want him out. Like, I don't think there'll be the Moyes in, Moyes out, Lopetegui in, Lopetegui out, because I was on the Moyes in side. Yeah. And I'm like, this geezer's rubbish. And so I'm not sold on him. And all the Moyes out brigade are also like, I didn't ask for this. So they effectively want him out as well. I don't think he's got too much credit in the bank with any fans at all, really. And James Jones, again, feels like he's sort of backing up his own agenda. And I've said all this to his face, so he won't mind if he's watching this. But he's just saying, and I said to him the other day on our podcast, I was like, so you think he's going to come good then, dear? Well, I didn't say that. Right, well, what are you saying then? Like, if you're saying give him some more time, you must think that it's going to come good. Otherwise, why would you say that? Like, if you don't think it's going to come good, get rid. Or if you have faith that it will, like, that's why you're saying give him more time. He's like, I'm not quite saying that. So even like staunch advocates of don't get rid of him yet, he's all right, I can see positive signs. That does my head in when James says that. But even people like him are still hardly sold on him. So no, I don't know. And you know what, mate? And that's why I'm so glum and downbeat about the whole thing, is that I can see it being average this season. I just think it's the second coming of the Dark Ages, like I talked about. And I so enjoyed the last few years. I had some of the best days of my life the last few years. I know there was some like people might not have had much of the ball, but I can just see it sort of like not being ever that bad to sack him. And then we just exist. That's what we did for a long time. We just exist. We just are. We just play the Premier League games. We're never close to going down. We're never close to Europe. We never really get anywhere in the cups. And it's just like, meh, again. And I thought we'd sort of put that behind us. And I loved the last few years so much.
I agree.
I can just see it rumbling on and then never being bad enough. And I could see him easily staying for 2 or 3 years and we just come 12th, 13th, 11th and get knocked out of the cups. And it's just like, oh, yeah, that was
back to reality to a point. Jay, any think you want to ask Will before we make a move?
What I'd like to know from you is we talk briefly about Tim Steidten Park, like the actual Tim Steidten conversation for a second.
Yeah.
How do you look upon the business that we did in the summer? And is your opinion now the same as it was when the transfer window closed?
Oh, that is a good question. That's a very good question. And I mean, people listen to this, and I sometimes I say things and I know why people get annoyed listening to me, because all I'm thinking now is that's the other thing he doesn't get any credit for. What an outstanding recruiter of players David Moyes was. Like, you know, the bargains we got. So I'm not going to say that because I do think that passionately. But plenty of our listeners to our podcast have told me to stop living in the past, and I'm struggling to do that. I think Todibo is mustard. Yeah. I think that was a really good deal. I think he'll come good. I think Soler is a poor man's Pablo Fornals. Not that Fornals' form wasn't very good towards the end, and from a business point of view, it made sense to sell him. I think Somerville is a very, very exciting player. I think I really like him. At first, I was calling him Saeed or Crescencio Benrahma, who I despised, by the way, Benrahma, because I thought he was going to be all stepovers, no end product, just as Saeed was. But I think he's really exciting. Fulkrug, I was convinced he was going to become a West Ham legend, like proper, finally break the curse. And I just think now he's been really unlucky, and I don't think the system he's coming back into genuinely lends itself to that. So a bit worried about that. But other than that, I mean, Rodriguez just not going to work. Wan-Bissaka, I am not sold on him at all. And it's one of those things I'm having already. I don't know what you two think, but where it feels like I'm watching different games to some people. Like at work this week, Tottenham fans as well, going, oh, he's one of your best players. And I'm like, I'm not having him at all. Give me Soufal back immediately.
Listen, I understand what you're saying. What do you make of Kilman, Will?
Mustard. Yeah, I forgot Kilman. Yeah, I really like him. I think he's really good. I just think at the moment, you know, everyone's going, oh, West Ham's defence not very good. No, I think our defence is fine, but it's the midfield that is like weak as paper. And the weird system that, you know, you could tell Kyle Walker to go and stand in the middle of the opponent's half, the fastest right back in the world, and he's not going to get back and make the tackles or cover the space that Wan-Bissaka's being expected to. But no, Kilman very good. Yeah, I actually think our squad is probably better than it was last season, but we're just making an absolute pig's ear of doing anything with it, to be honest. What do you two think? Like,
this is what I was going to say. This is why I'll disagree with you on Wan-Bissaka. And this is probably the only thing I've disagreed with that you said. Because, and you struck on a point yourself, is anyone who lays criticism on anyone in that back four, right? And I saw someone earlier on Twitter and I nibbled to it who called Max Kilman piss poor. And I was like, are you actually serious? Bro, if you're out there, put down the fentanyl for like 2 minutes and like deactivate Twitter. I swear down. I was fuming. Yeah. Anyway, the same about Wan-Bissaka, right? Is he is an absolutely top quality defensive fullback. But the system that we're playing is exactly what you said. He's finding himself in these weird spaces. Yeah. And everyone's going, he switches off positionally. And I'm like, yeah, he does. Because I wouldn't know no one knows what he's supposed to be doing when we're on the ball. I've got no clue. So like for that reason, I think Wan-Bissaka is a great player, but I don't understand his role in this side. Just the same as like Todibo is a top quality player. But I said to James the other day, like that fourth goal where he was getting pelters for his role in that fourth goal when Son turns him inside out. What is he supposed to do? Like, what was he actually supposed to do there? Yeah. Son is top quality and he's 1-1 against him. So, like, that's the only part that I would kind of disagree with you slightly on is Wan-Bissaka. And I agree, like, the players we've signed, you look at them on face value, they're all good quality players. But God knows what our like philosophy or what this vision actually is. Because I
Yeah.
want to back this vision. I want to back this project. You got to give me some sign as to where it's going and how we're going to get there. Is the problem? Like that's my issue personally. But
do you think? Sorry, do you think, mate, that I'm pointing as if you can see who I'm pointing at here. But, James, does it strike you? Because it feels to me like I think that if you put those players we've got, but get Bin Rodriguez, right? But if you played Aaron Wan-Bissaka as a right back and like just told him to stay in a reasonably traditional right back position and sort of put all those players in a semi-normal system, that would actually be half decent. It feels like Lopetegui's trying to do far too much and be this like inverted fullback in vogue, like this is what the fans wanted. It feels like actually you're making it worse. Like you're over trying too hard. Like
I completely and utterly agree with you, Will. Everything you just said there. Right. I think he's trying to do too much too soon, too quick. He's trying to integrate a style of play, get these players to do it, and basically do all these things, and then we're getting exposed. The teams are no mugs. Let's be real. Like they're picking us apart. Even in the second half against Spurs, what Ange done with that Sarr substitution just proved it straight away. He turned his two 10s into two DMs, and then basically completely turned us around. And had us over. I just want to go back to what was just said just a minute ago about the transfer window. I thought the transfer window was all right. I thought it was the only issue that I had with the transfer window that irritated me the most was you go for Füllkrug when you've been hunting down Duran all through the window, and the profiles just did not match. You go from a 20-year-old to a 31, 32-year-old, and it for me that felt like a failure to a point because listen, Duran's gone on and done good things, fair enough, and he's history to us now.
And you couldn't know that at the time, could you?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You didn't know at the time, but the problem is the profile of both players just did not make no sense. I think the midfield irritates me, Will, because how can you get the midfield so wrong? Like it's like having three statues in there. Do you know what I mean? And there's no we haven't got a powerful midfielder who's going to pick the ball up and drive us up the pitch. Like, and obviously we had one of the greats in Rice a few years ago, obviously, and we haven't really replaced him, but it's very hard to replace someone who's that good. I agree with you about Wan-Bissaka going forward, but I think that's a tactical thing. What Jay says in regards of him being defensive, I think that's fair. If he just plays as a right back and doesn't like bombard forward, I think he's a good player. I think the back four's decent. Another issue I have got is what if you know that you're playing out from the back, why have you not got a ball playing goalkeeper?
Mate, you know what? That's really interesting. As I was just thinking, I was like, I'm going to ask him about Areola in a minute because I think he's mustard, right? No West Ham fans before this season had a bad word to say about Areola, right? Not a single one. Yeah. And yeah, I was at Tottenham on Saturday and my seat was sort of like fairly close to the front. So you obviously, like I was behind the goal rather than on the side. So you're watching at quite close quarters. One of the saves he made in the first half, and the TV didn't really do it justice, right? But it was one where it took a shot and it took a deflection, and he sort of saved it right. And it was honestly, it was world class. Like the reaction in real time, the lightning fast reactions to stop it. I was like, that is mental. Like that is amazing. And then, he sort of were like expecting him with the ball at his feet, and you can tell he feels awkward. He's not confident. And then, so if he doesn't feel confident, he tries to spray one, a diagonal. And if that goes out, he gets a bit of grief. And you can almost see him like, and he's just being made to feel uncomfortable. And I was having this exact conversation with Tottenham supporting a colleague of mine today. And I said, it's just sort of so in vogue now with teams like desperate to have their goalkeepers as part of their starting 11. Or like part of their 11. And from a tactical perspective, I get it. But like, you're just ruining him. And I do honestly think that a couple of the terrible like nightmares he had with his hands, like the saves, the goals he sort of let in, were as a result of I just think that what he's being asked to do that he's not very good at with his feet is affecting his confidence. And that's what I mean. I just think if you set this team up in like a 1997 4-4-2,
Yeah.
Like, and just went, you know what, lads, we're not going to do any attack. You just do what you want this season. We'd come 10th, wouldn't we? Because we've got a decent squad of some good players. And it's like, you're almost going out, like, we wouldn't be this bad if you didn't tell him anything at all. Like, again, Ariola's really good. Just let him save shots and smash it up the pitch if he wants to. Like, stop making it more difficult than it has to be. But you're spot on with that. The other thing that does my head in, don't know what you two think about this, is the fact Danny Ings is still in the squad. Don't seriously, if either you mention Fulham, I'm logging off immediately. Never talk to you again. I'm not having it for 135 grand a week. The Fulham and Burnley, was it? The game he come on and saved last season or whatever. The fact he's still in the squad, that is more of a crime than, you know, I wouldn't, people give me grief about what I say about Antonio. I've got the ultimate respect for Mikel Antonio, what he's done for West Ham. It's not his fault that he's still starting for us. He should be in his semi-retirement phase now, coming on, doing half an hour at the end of every game, like max, and collecting his well-earned money and like happy days. Like, you know, everyone has like the old fella at the office or whatever on a building site or whatever. He's just like, he's done his years. We'll still pay him his day rate, but like, don't expect that much out of him. And that's what Antonio should be doing. And Fulkrug, all right, if he's injured, like any half-decent Premier League team at the level we want to be at, has 3 strikers on the books. Do you know what I mean? We don't. Danny Ings is an absolute travesty. And the fact we didn't, like, he's on so much money, no one wanted to touch him in the summer because they didn't want to pay his wages, quite rightly. But even if you're West Ham, I think you've got to say, right, we'll, you know, and clubs do this all the time. You might not get publicised, but go to, I don't know, Southampton or someone, Leicester. Go, look, have him, you pay him 50 grand, we'll cover the other 70 until the end of his contract. But at least it frees up 50 grand for West Ham to go and sign someone else who might actually have half an impact. Danny Ings, he's a dead weight, isn't he?
I completely agree.
What's he going to do this season for us? What is he going to do?
He's good vibes in some of the videos at the training ground. How about that 325 grand a week?
Decent hair transplant.
Yeah. Great Barnet. When we talk about good Barnets in the West Ham squad, he's right up there.
Good vibes. That is literally it, isn't it?
Good vibes. Barnet.
Bad vibes, though. Such bad vibes.
Good vibes United. That's what we are. Listen, I completely agree. When with Danny Ings, he should have been gone in the summer. Yeah, he's a lot of money, but I wouldn't surprise me.
Why sign him?
I know.
He didn't fit the profile, did he? It's bad signing. But that wasn't Sullivan signing, to be fair. Moyes didn't want him.
Sullivan doing what he does best. Will, any final words?
Yeah, just before I go, lads, tell me something, each of you, tell me something positive. Like, tell me something that's good about supporting West Ham at the moment, because I'm such a flipping doom and gloom merchant. I'm winding people up on my own podcast. So, just try and cheer me up with something. What have I got? I love your Julian Dick shirt. I think it's a version of this one I've got on the wall. That's a positive thing.
Yeah.
But what have I got to be excited about?
Here you go. Get your chops around this.
Go on.
We're having solar panels installed at the London Stadium. We're about to be completely sustainable. We're about to have a completely sustainable stadium.
That is decent. That is pretty good. Yeah. Will that see me in an away end at Leon again, like having the best day of my life? Or
I think.
Go on. Give me one.
I think we got. Good players. But I just don't think they're playing to the standard or playing to the style that matches what Lopetegui's trying to do. I think there is some really good gems there, like Debo, Kilman. I think Kilman, I'm going to be honest, I got Kilman completely wrong in the summer. I thought 40 million for this geezer. Is he that good? And he's been very good. Do you know what I'm saying? I agree with you earlier, Will, about Somerville. I think Somerville's a very good player that needs to be unleashed. And I think maybe his time might be now. Now, if he comes in and he tears it up in the next 3-4 games, whatever, then great. So there is positives within the squad. I think we've got some good players, and it's one of the best West Ham teams that I've seen for a hell of a long time. Do you know what I'm saying? As in squad of players. So there is positives. I'll just worry about Lopetegui in this one, because I think when you've got a manager in charge that is set in his way, when do you stand back and go, this is not working, I've got to go back to type sort of thing and try and get a nickel 1-0 and play a bit ugly. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's football, isn't it? Like, you don't win every game 3-0. Man City at Wolves at the weekend, like, ugly, needing a header from a corner late on to win the game. That's like, and that's what I think just wound me up about last season.
Quickly,
Was the fans almost didn't like winning. We'd get last minute winners. Remember Souček at Burnley? And I've never seen fury like it. It's like, if that was Man United doing that, they'd be buzzing. Like, Liverpool do it, and all their fans are like, yeah, this is why we're the best team in the world. This is what champions do. West Ham get a last minute winner at Burnley, and we're rather than like, yeah, this is a sign of a great team, all our fans are like, disgusting. Why aren't we winning 3-0 by half an hour? We'd get them out. Honestly, mental.
The amount of goals last year, Souček scored late. Nottingham Forest at home, Everton away, Burnley away, Arsenal away.
That's part of football, isn't it? Being in a game, like, if you're not playing well, do your hard work, keep yourself in it, and get from a set piece. That's all part of football, as well as like the odd game like against Ipswich where you just cruise it and win like easily. Yeah, I don't know. But this is I say things like that, and this is the sort of thing that gets people up in the comments on our podcast going, do you actually like West Ham? Like,
what I will say is, if anyone does want to put any comments in, I did see somebody in the chat. Yeah, I haven't had chance to do the comments because I've been enjoying this and hearing what Will's got to say. So anyone's going to go for 5 minutes and then we'll wrap up.
They're feral, James. I've had an eye on them. They're absolutely feral.
I know, mate. I know, but
there's some people on good form, I'd say.
Yeah, I will pick and choose the comments wisely. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I appreciate coming on tonight, Will. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Yeah, because I've been trying to get you on for a little while, and obviously, I see some of the stuff that you boys have been doing on your platform, and I'll be honest, I agree with you quite a lot in a lot of stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? The only
thing not James, obviously.
Yeah, listen, I agree. I understand. Listen, I get the positive vibe of it because you can't be negative all the time. Yeah, I can get that to a point. Yeah. The issue I've got is I think sometimes there's got to be a line in the sand where you go, this is not right. And some stuff, if you can praise up the manager and you can praise him for doing great and you can praise Steidten and all this, you have got to turn that around and criticise when criticism is needed.
Definitely.
I've got to ask you something before I wait for a few comments. What did you make of Steidten in the tunnel at Spurs before they walked out the other day?
I don't think I saw it. I was at the game, so.
Well, I'll let Jay explain.
So here's the thing. Like, we talk about Steiden's role on the pitch, right? I didn't really have a problem in Florida when he was having pitches with the fans. I was like, it's a preseason tour, whatever. I thought it was a bit weird when he was doing like a pre-game interview. Was it before Fulham or something? I thought that was a bit Chelsea, sorry. Really and weird. Then this weekend, as the players are lining up, big London derby against Spurs, Timothy Steidten is in Alphonse Areola's ear, giving him like last minute instructions and talking to the players as they're about to walk out. But what do you make of that?
When you get it at your feet, Alphonse, look really nervous, look like you're going to give it to Tottenham and then smash it out for a throw-in. All right, no, mate, nice one. Cheers, Tim. I think, to be honest, I just think I can't see him being at West Ham for ages, put it that way. I think, he's very much like, I don't know, Project Tim Steidten rather than Project West Ham. Do you know what I mean? Again, no, not he's not Project West Ham. I think it's one of them. I couldn't, and I'm I do it for a living. There's a lot of these things I should know, but I couldn't name the sporting or technical directors at probably at least half of the Premier League teams. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's how it should be. If you want to be a manager, mate, go and do your licenses. Like, if this isn't about you, like, no one's paying their money to come and see you on the pitch. They're coming to see the players and support the team. Like, if you wear a suit to your job at the club, like you should be in the boardroom, or you should be. I just find it, But and having somewhat of a bit of insight, on the matter. It's very much sort of in keeping with like what his personality's like. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of you don't do that sort of stuff on it by accident. There are plenty of sporting and technical directors and clubs in the Prem who, if you rang them up and said, "Can I do an interview before the game with the sporting director or the technical director?" they'd be like, "No, you can't. Why would you even ask that?" Mental. So yeah, I think as a lot of it is sought out by Tim. He's more than happy to do all that because it's very much like he's that's what he's trying to get his face in front of the cameras and sort of.
Do you think, Will, that there is a project at West Ham? Because I'll get Richard's comment there. Do you really think there is a Tim Steidten project? Now, is there not a Tim Steidten project, but is there really a West Ham project currently right now for you?
No, and if I'm honest, I think it's a bit difficult with this because I don't think that how do I word this? That those in charge of West Ham I don't think they have been particularly football savvy. Do you know what I mean? And that's why, and I think that's why I also think David Moyes' achievement and what he achieved at West Ham, given the nature of the club we are, right? So financial power plus general setup, characters behind the scenes. So I just think, I don't know, like Paul Barber at Brighton, what's his name? The Brentford guy, I know his name, but like it's all very deliberate and very analytical and very set up to do that. David Sullivan's approach, and I don't, there are so many worse than David Sullivan as well, and all of the success we had came under his tenure as well as all the really dark days. But it very much strikes you as the sort of bloke, which is what he is, right? He's a sort of
wheeler dealer.
Yeah, made good, right?
He's a lemon squeezer, isn't he? Like he needs to operate like a lemon squeezer. Like, really.
Exactly. Yeah, but he's made billions of pounds, really successful businessman. He's made he's wrung every drop of his potential out, right? And like good on him for, bettering himself or furthering himself, whatever you want to call it. But I still think it's a bit like that. You can, I don't know, you can take the boy out of Essex, but you can't take Essex out of the boy, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think you can take whatever it is, wheeler dealer, or you can take whatever it is that you think David Sullivan is, you can take him out of that and put him in the finery and give him billions of pounds, and put him in a nice house. But he's still the same sort of bloke. And I think it's inevitable. That's how the football club is run. So I think that, and you see it at Man United, like chaos. I'm not saying it's as chaotic at West Ham. I don't at all. I think there are some really good things the club do as well. But that all bleeds down, doesn't it? And I think the same thing, Brighton and Brentford punch above their weight, like given the fan base history and financial power, because of the way everything's set up. Man United are punching well below their weight because everything's chaotic and like a disaster. So I suppose that's a long way of saying I don't really feel like there's ever been, I don't think it's always been set up for footballing success, which is why
I think it's more to do with transfers, Will, more than anything. Like,
that's I think part of it, isn't it, mate? It's also scattergun.
Yeah, I think what it is where West Ham have been bad in selling players. Right, so I can't remember the last time, other than Rice, where we've actually sold a player for profit.
Dean Garner,
mate. Yeah, maybe, but that's like even that was a rare.
Yeah.
Even that one was a big outcry.
Other than Declan Rice, did you say? Yeah.
Other than Declan Rice, I can't remember a player where we've bought a player in and sold him for like mega profit to a point.
Yeah, maybe like Ngakia or Ben Johnson. I think made a few quid on maybe, but it's not big money. I know.
Yeah. So what it is that I think he's come in to get the players in to like sort of develop, build them up, a bit like a money ball system. To a point where you bring players in, you build them up.
You need more than one man for that, mate. That's the problem. You need an entire club singing off the same hymn sheet. Like,
I agree. Yeah.
Like a massive resource base and databases and analytics and stuff like that. And it does feel sometimes like West Ham still sort of just like David Sullivan just like opens his laptop in the morning, does a bit of football club running, like shuts the laptop and then like, you know, like back off or whatever. I don't know. It just feels like the whole setup feels a little bit less professional than at some other clubs who are around our sort of spending power. It's not just about spending money, it's how you spend it.
I think you lost me at the concept of David Sullivan opening his laptop up, and I was like, the amount of malware that will be on that thing. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, that's the trailer. That's the trailer.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I think we've just historically been a bit of a chaos club, and that's why I think Moyes' achievements, achieving it at a club like West Ham. Well, and I think, like I say, I've said it already. It seems a good way to sign off. Time will tell. Time will show what an achievement it was. And unfortunately, all that will do that is a few more years of mediocrity, which I think is what we've got in our future.
Yeah. Jay, thank you very much for joining me. Will, thank you very much for coming
on. Nice one, lad. Really enjoyed that.
I really do appreciate you coming on, mate. Special like on the video, subscribe to E20 Zone TV, notification bell, and all of that. I'll be back in the week. Manchester United, lads. Are you looking forward to it? Because I'm not. No Kudus. Yeah, we're going to see how we go on that. But anyway, from me to you, take care. Will, final word?
Yeah, you're welcome to read out any of the more feral comments if you like. I get flipping loads of them, so they actually make me laugh most of the time. Go on, give me a couple of the best ones.
Oh, they've all gone into hiding. I can't really see anymore now, but
Mike Theory's asking if you wore that West Ham shirt because you're looking sexy, bruv.
No, that's quite nice. I thought it was more like, what is this bloke talking about? I'm going to cave his head in if I ever see him at West Ham.
You're getting a lot of love, mate. A lot of love for your opinions and a lot more love for how you look. So yeah.
Right, enjoyed this, lads. Nice one.
Take care.
Hype, 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 hype. Come with me.